Thank you for taking the time to attend. We're pleased to have you present at our Veterans Day celebration event. My name is James Robayo. I am an Army veteran, Vice President of the Student Veterans Association and a student here at Lone Star College-Kingwood. The Atascocita High School Marine Corps Junior ROTC will now present the colors. Please stand.
Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated.
Thank you for joining us today to honor veterans of the United States Armed Forces. I am one of your staff advisors for the Student Veterans Association and an academic advisor with the Veterans Resource Center here at Lone Star College-Kingwood. My name is Daniel, and I'm proud to be here. We wish to extend a special thanks, of course, to our president, Dr. Melissa Gonzalez, and our interim vice president of Student Success, Ernesto Valenzuela, for both of their continued encouragement and support for our students and our organization. Today, we wish to educate the community on the veteran experience. The relationships we make today will help us find and provide volunteers with critical roles in the development of confidence, dissemination of vital resources, and the facilitating of the success of our veteran students. We are here to promote a culture of care. All veteran transitions vary by the individual, and no single experience is ever the same. This is why a support network is integral for veteran success. We need to remove the stigma that asking for help is a sign of weakness. Through conversations like the ones we will have today, we aim to develop comprehensive allies in supporting veteran transitions, first into civilian life and then into our even more distinct academic environment. Our keynote speaker this afternoon will be Marine Corps veteran Eric Ellenberger. Eric currently serves as the Alumni Manager for the Houston Wounded Warrior Project Office, responsible for managing life-changing services for over 10,000 post 9/11 veterans and family members across East Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas. Eric served in the Marine Corps from January 2004 to August 2015 as a military police officer. During this time, he deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan and had the great honor of leading and following many great Americans. He also served as a combat instructor for 3 years, training young Marines in infantry tactics in keeping with every Marine, a rifleman. He was then selected to train those that would train and mold those warfighters for generations to come as an instructor at Combat Instructor School. Eric is a graduate of Lone Star College-Kingwood, earning his Associates of Arts, and a graduate of the University of Houston Downtown, earning his Bachelor of Arts in History. He is currently completing his last semester in grad school at the University of Houston Downtown, pursuing a master's in nonprofit management. Eric has been married to Brandy Ellenberger for 19 years. They have 2 daughters, McKaylee, a sophomore at the University of Texas in Austin, and Dallas, who is currently in 6th grade, and a son, Peyton, who is a senior in high school and upon graduation plans to attend the University of Texas at Austin. He was born and raised in Houston, Texas, and after a short detour in the Marine Corps, found his way back as fast as possible to our great city and state. Eric?
Test. All right, sorry about that. Like you said, I'm a Marine, so excuse me. I almost had to ask Dan, who I had the pleasure to work with, and I'll get into it a little bit here in a second. I almost wanted to ask you who you were talking about, because I'm pretty sure that wasn't me. Thank you, everybody who came out. I want to make sure I say thank you to President Gonzalez, who I know wasn't able to attend, Dean Keenan, and then I want to make a special thanks to Rogelio, Daniel, and then Wendy Higgins, Jeremiah Rodriguez, James Roballo, and Jonathan Rocha, who work in the vet center upstairs, because my journey that I'm going to talk about today started in that vet center. Thank you to all the veterans and family members that came out and are in attendance today. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't take a second before I got into all the Veteran Day stuff to make sure I say happy birthday to all the Marines in the audience. Because that is in 2 days, so happy birthday, Marines. We'll make sure I say that. I'm going to play a short video, and then I'm going to get into what I want to talk about today. So bear with me for just a couple minutes. We'll watch this video about Wounded Warrior Project, and then I'll tie it all in, hopefully, at the end. So, hey, thank you for watching that. We're going to get into that in just a second, but I want to read something that I found yesterday, actually, on the VA website about Veterans Day, and then we'll tie all this in on why what everybody does here and everybody in our community does is so important for our veterans. So I'm going to get into a little bit of the history of Veterans Day. Sir, if some of it's inaccurate, I apologize. I know I have a couple of history professors in the room today, so it's straight from the VA website about Veterans Day, so if it's off a little bit, I didn't write it, but it's from the VA. So history of Veterans Day. World War I, known at the time as the Great War, officially ended when the Treaty of Versailles was signed on June 28, 1919, in the Palace of Versailles outside the town of Versailles in France. However, fighting ceased 7 months earlier when the armistice, or temporary cessation of hostiles between the Allied nations and Germany, went into effect on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. For that reason, November 11th, 1918 is generally regarded as the end of the war to end all wars. In November 1919, President Wilson proclaimed November 11th as the first commemoration of Armistice Day with the following words: "To us in America, the reflections of Armistice Day will be filled with the solemn pride and the heroism of those who died in the country's service, and with gratitude to the victory, both because of the thing from which it has freed us and because the opportunity has given America to show her sympathy and peace and justice in the councils of the nations." The original concept for the celebration was for a day observed with parades and public meetings and a brief suspension of business beginning at 11 a.m. The United States Congress officially recognized the end of World War I when it passed a concurrent resolution on June 4th, 1926 with these words. Whereas the 11th of November 1918 marked the cessation of the most destructive and far-reaching war in human and the resumption by the people of the United States of peaceful relations with other nations, which we hope we may never again. And whereas where is it fitting for the reoccurring anniversary of this date should we be commemorated with thanksgiving and prayer and exercises designed to protect peaceful through goodwill and mutual understanding between nations. And whereas the legislature of 27 of our states have already declared November 11th to be a legal holiday. Therefore, be it resolved by the Senate, the House of Representing concurring, that the President of the United States is requested to issue a proclamation calling upon the officials to display the flag of the United States on all government buildings on November 11th and inviting the people of the United States to observe the day in school and in churches or other suitable places with appropriate ceremonies of friendly relations with all other peoples. An act approved May 13, 1938, made the 11th of November in each year a legal holiday, a day to be dedicated to the cause of world peace and thereafter celebrated and known as Armistice Day. Armistice Day was primarily a day set aside to honor veterans of World War I. But in 1954, after World War II had required the greatest mobilization of soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen in nation's history, after American forces had fought aggressions in Korea, the 83rd Congress, at the urging of the Veteran Service Organization, amended the Act of 1938 by striking out the word armistice and inserting it in its place the word veterans. With the approval of the legislature, Public Law 380, on June 1st, 1954, November 11th, became a day to honor American veterans of all wars. Later that same day, on October 8, Dwight D. Eisenhower issued the first Veterans Day proclamation, which stated, "In order to ensure proper and widespread observance of this anniversary, all veterans organizations, and the entire citizenry will wish to join hands in common purpose. Towards this end, I am designated the Administrator of Veterans Affairs as Chairman of Veterans Day National Committee, which shall include all other persons as the Chairman may select, and which will coordinate at the national level necessary planning for the observance. I am also requesting that the heads of all departments and agencies of the executive branch of the government to assist National Committee in every possible way." On that same day, President Eisenhower sent a letter to the Honorable Harvey V. Higley, Administrator of Veterans Affairs, designating him as the chairman of the Veterans Day Committee. In 1958, the White House advised VA General Counsel that 1954 designation of VA Administrator as chairman of Veterans Day National Committee applied to all subsequent VA administrators. Since March 1989, when the VA was elevated to a cabinet-level department, the Secretary of Veterans Affairs served as the committee's chairman. The Uniform Holiday Bill was signed on June 28, 1968, and was intended to ensure 3-day weekends for all federal employees by celebrating 4 national holidays on Monday: Washington's birthday, Memorial Day, Veterans Day, and Columbus Day. It was thought that these extended weekends would encourage travel, recreation, and culture activities to stimulate greater industrial and commercial production. Many states did not agree with the decision and continued to celebrate the holiday on the original dates. The first Veterans Day under the new law was observed with much confusion on October 25th, 1971. It was quite apparent that the commemoration of the day was a matter of historic and patriotic significance to a greater number of our citizens. And so on September 20th, 1975, President Gerald R. Ford signed a public law which returned the annual observance to Veterans Day to its original date on November 11th, beginning 1978. This action supported the desires of the overwhelming majority of state legislatures and all major veteran service organizations and the American people. Veterans Day continues to be observed on November 11th, regardless of what day of the week it falls. The restoration of the observance of Veterans Day to November 11th not only preserves the historical significance of the date, but helps focus attention on the important purpose of Veterans Day, a celebration to honor American veterans for their patriotism, love of country, and willingness to serve and sacrifice for a common good. So I promise that's all I'm going to read. The rest I'm going to tell you about me and tie this together and hopefully pass some information to make sure I say thank you. So my journey to where I am today. As Daniel alluded to, I went to school here, just like all the students sitting here today. In the summer of 2016, I'd been out of the Marine Corps for about a year. I was kind of lost, wasn't sure what I was going to do. I got out in 2015 after a successful career in the Marine Corps. My oldest daughter, who's now a sophomore at UT in Austin, came to me and said, "Dad, enough is enough." I said, "Okay." At this point, my son was, I think, 8, maybe off a little bit. And he was going into the 5th grade. 8 years old, going into the 5th grade. I'd known my son for 3 years. So, fast forward, I exit. I get out, take a couple interviews with some high-profile organizations, agencies that start and end with 3 letters, and decided it just wasn't in me anymore to continue down that path. So I actually took a job with AT&T. I didn't want anything to do with the military. I didn't want anything to do with being in charge of anybody. I'd done that long enough, and I needed a break. So I do that for about 7-8 months, and I did the thing I said I would never do. And for all of you sitting here today that work at a college, which is most of you, you're not going to like what I have to say, but I said I would never go back to school. I didn't need a degree. I didn't need school. They weren't going to teach me anything. So I showed up outside of the campus that I lived 4 minutes away from and that I grew up 4 minutes away from. I applied and I started class. My first class was at 7 a.m. Yeah, I'm that guy that signed up for a 7 a.m. class. And it was Professor Stephen Davis's College 101 class. And I can tell you there's nobody that I probably see things differently than Professor Davis. My absolute favorite professor to this day, and I graduate grad school in about 30 days. I learned more from that person than I've learned from anybody in my life, and I probably disagree with him on most issues. But I learned how to have dialogue. So I signed up, and I was about a semester in, and this is going to be the first time that I tell this story. I was a semester in, came back. I was in the spring semester of 2017, and I was walking the old building, I don't know what it's called, the astronomy building. The astronomy class, I always saw the cool pictures. And I was walking by that class, and I was going to the stairway, and I was getting ready to go down the stairs. At this point, I was working part-time, teaching some advanced shooting skills at a range, teaching concealed handgun carry, stuff like that. And I was in a bad spot. So I'm walking and I'm getting to the stairs, and keep in mind I have a daughter in high school, a son in middle school at this point, and a little baby. She's not so little anymore, but and I'm in a bad spot. I went from, like many of you in here, I moved 180 Marines from one country to the next as a company gunner sergeant, and I was in charge of a budget of over $60 million. And now, I gotta go sit in a college 101 class with a bunch of 18-year-olds and find a way to fit in. And I didn't necessarily fit in. And I knew I didn't fit in. I think I was 33 at the time, maybe a little bit younger. I think I'm still 33. But, and so I'm walking down the stairs, I see this, all the flyers that are everywhere that everybody gets mad about. And I'm walking down the stairs, and I see the flyer. It says work studies, or VA work studies, available positions in the vet center. I said, what is this? Let me check it out. So I take it. I think I had two classes that morning, and I make my way over to the vet center where it used to be right out here. And I'm like, hey, I see this piece of paper. What's this about? And Dan was in there, Lauren, another person that was there, and then George. And then they were like, hey, you got to talk to Espinoza. I said, well, first of all, who's Espinoza? Let me talk to him. So I go in there, and I got my big bravado on. I'm a tough Marine. I don't need help. Obviously, I need help if I'm coming to be a work study, and I'm hurting for money, and I've lost everything that was important to me. So I go in there, I talk to SB, and about 20 seconds into talking to him, I realize I do need help. I'm not okay. From that point, I think I made it a year before I applied for Wounded Warrior Project, but I built relationships in that room, arguing with a lot of other veterans, disagreeing, what do we call it, debating, having good dialogue. It was more like screaming. But it was a safe spot that I had, that I found, that totally turned my life and my journey around. Because I can tell you, as veterans, we don't like to say it. And I'm going to make it through this, but leading up to that point, probably 3 or 4 times, I can sit here today and tell you, me ending everything crossed my mind. And it wasn't once or twice. And so every time you see a veteran, you see them walking around, you don't know what's going on. And I don't know what's going on. The only way I know is if I stop and say, how are you? And I had the honor to be here 4 years ago now, because we lost, 2 or 3 years, with Mike Iyer, who spoke here 3 or 4 years ago. And he's a retired sergeant major, and one of the things he said to me, I say all the time now. And I hope nobody takes offense to this, because I absolutely thank every veteran you can for their service. Thank them. But more importantly, ask them, how are you doing? Because you don't know. You don't know. So that's my journey. My education journey has continued. I will tell you I'm the biggest advocate of school that you will ever meet. My team will be at LSU in 2 days. I was at Baylor at their vet center 4 days ago. And to me, the key for all veterans is education. And I'll tell you, again, some of the professors aren't going to like what I got to say, but maybe what I learned in the class wasn't that important. But the relationships I developed, the communication that I learned, and how to check my ego was the biggest thing that I ever learned. All right, so a couple things as you see veterans around your campus. I read why Veterans Day is so important. How many vets are in here? If you could raise your hand, I appreciate it. Okay. I will tell you there's probably 25, 30 vets in here. In that collective group, you're probably looking at 30 times 100. They probably managed 30,000 to 100,000 people in their last year of service. There's nowhere else in this world that you get 20 to 45-year-olds that are coming into a university or a college that have managed groups of personnel that large. Not to say that they're any better than anybody else. Whenever you're communicating with them, keep that in mind. And sometimes we need to have our ego shook a little bit and take some humble pie. But that's a dynamic that comes into a classroom that can come from nowhere else. Nowhere else. I was given a speech one time at a corporal's course graduation. And I asked everybody sitting in the audience that wasn't a Marine or service member, How many 22-year-olds do I have in the room? They raised their hand, a couple of them. It's okay. How many of you have made a decision to enter a room or to send other people into a room that you know is going to result in one of them getting shot? Those are the decisions that the people sitting in this classroom or in this room have made. And they've made it for everybody sitting in this room. So can they make decisions? Can they expand their mind? Absolutely. So as we're communicating with our veterans across campus or in a classroom, learn from some of their experiences. Because I promise you, they're going to learn from you as well. I've learned more in the last couple of years from those that didn't serve than I have that have served. My teammate that's with me today in the back, Izzy, didn't serve. She communicates with veterans way better than I do, right? So keep that in mind. Now, WWP. I came here, I work for Wounded Warrior Project, but I wanted to make sure that I said I worked here as well, and I love my time here, and I will forever be a graduate of this place, because the university I went to afterwards, and hopefully whenever I get my PhD, had an impact, but not like this place. Truly saved my life. So I have two stories. One is a student that goes here. I'm not going to say their name. She's my daughter's best friend, or was in high school. Knew her father. We were really good friends. The first month that she was a student here, her father passed away. And her benefits were going to end, and she wasn't going to be able to pay for school anymore. And I was able to reach out to one of our services. You saw it, our benefits team. I actually used to work for them. And in a matter of five weeks, we got her connected, and she has benefits for the rest of her life for education. Her school's paid for. She receives money every month while she's going to school. Totally changed her life. So whenever you think of Wounded Warrior Project, and you think about the warriors that we help, we absolutely help warriors. But if you have family support members, if you have children that are in need, we're here for that as well. And then the last one, probably about a month and a half ago, we had an event in our office off Post Oak. I got to give a plug here. So our office off Post Oak by the Galleria, if anybody wants to come see us. But we were having an event, and a warrior came in. He wasn't doing good. I could see it. So I went over and I did my line that I learned from Mike Iyer. How are you doing? He looks at me, tells me, I'm not going to curse up here, but how the F you think I'm doing? Well, you're not doing good, so do you want to talk? Yeah, I'll talk, but you're not going to be able to help. You might be right, I might not be able to help. I may not, but let me try. And so this vet had been arguing with the VA, and so I'm not bashing the VA either, because I think the VA does a great job. They're just overwhelmed like everybody else. So anybody that works for the VA here, you do a good job. Continue. It's our job to help as well. So, yeah, well, let me see if I can help. So got him connected, got him and his wife to a Project Odyssey, our mental health team. Totally changed their marriage. They're still married and they're getting along. And then most importantly, our VA team did help. Our benefits team did help. They had made a mistake in his file, and that warrior received a payment of about $195,000, about 3 weeks removed from the conversation of him telling me, you can't effing help me. $195,000, paid off his house, and is able to do what he wants to do now. But most importantly, took the stress. The $195,000 can change a lot of stuff. It can't change your life. Places like this, through your education and being available to vets whenever they need it, is what will change their lives. So, much like it impacted me a couple years ago, if you see a vet on campus, absolutely thank them for their service, but ask them how they're doing. Because I can tell you, even though they might put off a great facade, they may not be doing great, because I wasn't. And I can tell you it wasn't going to last much longer. So There's great resources like Wounded Warrior Project that I work. There's other organizations all over the place that do great work, Combined Arms here in Houston, VFW, DAV, they all do great. So this isn't a plug for get them to me, get them to somewhere, be a helping hand. A lot of times it's just a stress of here at a college, life's changed. And we have to take a step back and assess where we're at, right? And don't be scared to have those conversations with them. So I want to make sure that I say thank you for ESPY, for having me out. Daniel, thank you for having me out. All the people that are here, thanks for listening to me, putting up with me for a couple minutes. I hope I didn't go too long. And thank you for having things like these for the vets. And thank you for listening. And hope everybody has a great day. And don't forget, November 10th is the Marine Corps birthday, and then Veterans Day is the 11th. But on November 10th, find a Marine, tell them happy birthday. So thank you very much.
I would like to take this moment to introduce the Table of the Fallen Soldier here to my left. The Table of the Fallen Soldier is set for one, symbolizing the fact that members of our armed forces are missing from our ranks. They are referred to as POWs and MIAs. We call them comrades. They are unable to be with their loved ones and families, so we join together to pay our humble tribute to them and bear witness to their continued absence. This table, set for one, is small, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner alone against their suppressors. The tablecloth is white, symbolic of the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. The red rose in the vase signifies the blood that many have shed and sacrificed to ensure the freedom of our beloved United States of America. This rose also reminds us of the family and friends of our missing comrades who keep the faith while waiting for their return. A slice of lemon on the plate reminds us of their bitter fate. The salt sprinkled on the plate reminds us of the countless volunteers of families as they wait. The glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us. The chair is empty. They are not here. The candle is reminiscent of the light of hope which lives in our heart to illuminate their way home, away from their captors to the open arms of a grateful nation. At this moment, I would like for you all to stand while we listen to taps. Thank you, Caleb. Thank you to all of the volunteers who helped put on this event here today. Once again, I want to thank just not only the volunteers, but also everyone for attending. I would like to mention the services we have in attendance here today to answer any questions. They're all in the back if you'd like to go speak with them. Of course, our Mr. Eric Ellenberger and Miss Isabella with the Wounded Warrior Project. And then we also have the Coast Guard and Navy recruiters here if you guys are interested as well. Thank you all for coming.